record.
Mark, can you share? Can you just make sure you can share your site? I mean,
Yeah, absolutely. Let me do that. You know what? The deck ended up being too large, I think, for the email service. We'll have to figure a different way to send it out to you.
Yeah, I didn't get it. It's
afterwards.
Okay.
We'll do it afterwards. Yeah. Okay. Let me share.
Got Barry as well. Manny, good morning, everyone.
Okay, that's great. We are in business.
We are in business. Sonia, I'm going to give it another 30 seconds or so, and then I'll kick off with disclaimers and turn it over to you, okay?
Sure, no problem.
All right, why don't we begin? A very good morning, everyone. Welcome to this month's Wall Street Blockchain Alliance Enterprise and Technology Working Group meeting. This working group meeting, as all of our working group meetings, are subject to both our confidentiality and antitrust policies. So please do keep that in mind as part of the conversation. Keep in mind also that this meeting in particular is being recorded. Our meeting and Zoom protocols, if you are dialed in by phone particularly, but if you do speak or ask questions, please let us know who you are. Please introduce yourself to our speakers as well. Please also keep in mind our Zoom protocols. We've been very lucky over the past couple of years. We've not been Zoom bombed, but in the instance, should we unfortunately become Zoom bombed, we would end the meeting with apologies to all. But with that, I'll stop talking, turn it over to the chair of our Enterprise and Tech Working Group, Ms. Sonia Goklani. Sonia, over to you.
Thank you, Ron. So sorry about last month. I was actually out of town. I was out of the country actually, and now we're back. So going forward, actually, we're trying to do more sessions. We'll have vendor sessions as well as discussion sessions. So the next session, we're planning to have like a forum with all of you guys from a metaverse perspective in terms of what your thoughts are. It will be an informal forum. And then, so we probably try and do at least a couple of sessions, like 2 sessions a month, or about 3 sessions in 2 months, approximately like that, depending on the topics. And like we request all of you to actually come back to us in terms of what you would like to hear, in terms of what kind of other things you want to see. We would certainly try to incorporate it in every quarter planning as we do for the next session. So today we are, we have Oracle here, and Mark, a very senior leader with Oracle, has a lot of experience in working with different kind of blockchain platforms, has integrated Oracle blockchain to multiple and different banks, and actually had probably one of the few people that we've met on the street with experience in interoperability and the challenges they've faced, and integrated with multiple clouds, with the client server systems or with ERP systems. There are not many vendors out there who integrated across the spectrum. So it will be interesting to actually understand his experiences and in terms of the different use cases that he's experienced in the financial services sector. Oracle obviously is in other sectors too, but this particular forum, we are focusing mainly on banking and financial services. So Mark, the podium is yours.
Sure. Thank you very much, Ron and Sonia, and appreciate the invitation to come and share a little bit of our experience with the group. Happy to be here. So as Sonia said, we have a number of things that we will try to share today. Fairly extensive agenda. I'll go quickly through just a little bit of our perspective and point of view on where enterprise blockchain is today, and Oracle strategy in the space, Oracle blockchain platform, which is an offering that we have launched since 2018, and have a number of, I would say, over 200 customers and organizations using it today. And I'll share with you some of the financial banking examples and use cases across different segments. And then we'll switch gears and talk a little bit about NFT use cases. I know it's a topic of particular interest these days that Sonia asked me to cover. We're beginning to see more of that in enterprise space as well. And then just finish with a few thoughts on how Oracle is working with customers, how we engage, how we help customers in their blockchain journey, and some time for questions. But I would welcome questions throughout, so don't necessarily wait until the end. If you want to raise something, please do. and I'd be happy to to cover it. So let's dive right in. Oracle is specifically focused on what we refer to as an enterprise blockchain space. So that excludes public blockchains. We're not really involved in cryptocurrency, decentralized finance, and those kind of areas. We tend to focus on permission blockchain, whether they are operated by, let's say, as a private blockchain by a single organization with multiple entities, maybe multiple divisions, etc., or federated consortium blockchain where multiple organizations are working together, multiple actual enterprises, and so on. Or there's a bit of an overlap these days in what sort of we see as a public/permission blockchain combination. I'll talk a little bit about that, but essentially where the writers are permissioned, but readers are not necessarily so, or at least there is some kind of a different authentication mechanism that enables the readers to be provided access without necessarily having the membership. We obviously see a lot of momentum in that space. Permission blockchains tend to be a lot lighter and faster, so we see much higher transaction speeds, stronger security, confidentiality mechanisms, all based on the fact that there are known identities that are participating in the network. Our vision is for this kind of blockchains to support rapid development of business and organizational networks across many ecosystems, and in many cases optimize existing networks as well that might be have been created for various reasons before the blockchain, using trusted transactions and providing a sort of single source of truth ledger between those parties without requiring intermediaries helps to facilitate many business processes and create new opportunities as well. So our strategy is to try to make it easy and quick for enterprises to become sort of a go-to platform for this kind of use cases, and also to help developers have a superior experience. There is a specific set of skills often required in developing blockchain applications, and there is not enough folks with that background and that skill set. So we try to simplify the development process and provide tooling. We offer both cloud and on-premise offerings. They are based on Hyperledger Fabric. We have been a member of Hyperledger community since 2017 and delivered our first product based on Hyperledger Fabric's Oracle blockchain platform in 2018, initially in the cloud, later on in on-premises version as well, and have been expanding that since then. We also have SaaS applications for supply chain management called Intelligent Track and Trace, built on top of the platform. And we have also started in the last couple of years leveraging some of the techniques from blockchain world in Oracle database in what we call crypto secure data management, which provides certain benefits and capabilities at the level of blockchain tables in the database. So we have 4 different offerings, as I mentioned, starting with the blockchain platform cloud based on Hyperledger Fabric, with a lot of enterprise extensions came out in 2018 as a cloud offering surrounded by tooling, API gateways, management, development tooling, etc., and supports the ability to run smart contracts as a native kind of smart contracts written in Go, Java, or JavaScript. Supports tokenization. That's something we've added last year as well. And we also support a Solidity EVM on top of this, so you can run Solidity smart contracts as well on this platform. On-premise version, very much the same capabilities, but just available outside of Oracle Cloud on premises or third-party deployment, third-party cloud deployments. The supply chain management application, Intelligent Track and Trace, works well with a lot of other Oracle Cloud ERP applications, collects the data, provides traceability visualizations at a business user level without folks having to think about the blockchain underneath, so it embeds the blockchain platform. And then the blockchain tables in a database, which is a new capability introduced since 19C version of Oracle database, essentially provides insert-only tables with cryptographic hash chaining, validation capabilities, user signing, and so on. So you have some of the cryptographic benefits of a blockchain, but in a single organization, centralized context, available directly through standard, database, SQL, and other tooling. So makes it possible to have a lot of mainstream applications benefit from these capabilities. The blockchain platform, which is what we're going to focus on today for the rest of the session, as I said, was born as a cloud service, Hyperledger Fabric with a lot of pre-built components from Oracle Cloud services integrated into it, right? So it's all pre-assembled. You don't have to spend, weeks or months putting it together. You can provision it as a managed service in Oracle Cloud in a matter of minutes. It's open, supports integration with non-Oracle Fabric peers as well as in the cloud or on-premise environments, open source Fabric, Fabric from other vendors who participate in Hyperledger community, AWS, IBM, etc., SAP. We provide low-code development tooling to simplify the development of chain codes. A lot of integration capabilities, API gateways. It provides REST API calls and event subscriptions with callbacks, standard client SDKs from Hyperledger Fabric, as well as adapters that are available in our integration cloud to support a broad range of ERP systems, all kinds of system of records, back-end, back-office systems, etc.
Mark, you have a question? Ron?
Hey, Sonia, thanks.
Yeah.
Mark, and I appreciate the presentation. I just wanted to dive into something you had mentioned a bit earlier, and I just, we spend quite a bit of time, and as we mentioned, a lot of the folks here are deep like yourself in a lot of these projects. You mentioned kind of not particularly focusing on public blockchain per se, but we're seeing a lot of work around understanding hybrid interactions with public blockchain. I particularly spend quite a bit of time talking to colleagues that are looking at things like cross-chain bridges and potential longer range enterprise adoptions there. Can you just explain that perspective on kind of I don't want to use the word avoid, but where public blockchain isn't particularly a focus? I just want to make sure I'm understanding that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So where customers are looking to create, token-based assets in Oracle blockchain, and then be able to move them and exchange them with public blockchains, that kind of interoperability and bridging is certainly within our focus, and we're actually working quite a bit in that area right now. What I was referring to is where somebody is deploying purely on a public blockchain, right? On Bitcoin, Ethereum, it's a cryptocurrency kind of application exclusively that does not have anything to do with sort of enterprise blockchain requirements. We probably are not going to be the strongest vendor in that space. Where there is a combination of a permissioned enterprise blockchain that needs to interoperate with public chains, absolutely. That's an area that I believe is important. As you said, there is more interest in that these days, particularly with assets being born in one place, moving to another places, and so on. And that's something we plan to support.
And Mark, just as a quick follow-up to that, apologies. Does that perspective maintain? I think you might have seen the news this morning, ETH 2.0 and the on-ramp to that got pushed into later this year. Would you still think that's the case if ETH 2.0 kind of delivers on some of its targets?
I think so. I mean, obviously, we always look at what's happening in the space and continuously adjust our strategy as we see our customers taking advantage of new capabilities, whether it's ETH 2.0 or anything else that's related in the space. We'll be paying attention and making adjustments if necessary.
Great, thank you, Mark.
We try to be pretty agile in the space and see where the customers need to go and try to get a little bit ahead of them.
Great, thank you, Mark.
Mark, we have one more question from Mani. Mani, go ahead. Mani?
Yeah. Does Oracle offer any specific support for other ledgers like Corda or Daml?
So we don't offer support for Corda. We do support the capability to use Daml. We have actually been working with DA on making sure that the latest capabilities that they provide to integrate with backend ledgers can work with Oracle blockchain, and they've done some work in that area. So Daml is supported.
Okay, thank you.
As well as I mentioned Solidity through an EVM running on top of our blockchain nodes. So a few examples that I wanted to share with you right off the bat. One of the things that we have made a priority when we started down this journey in 2018 is to go beyond just experimenting and actually help people get into live deployments, production deployments, and make sure that our technology is production grade, right? We know something about building complex systems in Oracle, supporting, mission critical applications and so on. We wanted to kind of apply and leverage that. So since day one, we really were focused on helping people to get into production deployments. Here's a few in financial services. This is on the left-hand side. This is a bank in the Middle East, operates across multiple countries. There's multiple subsidiaries. Very simple cross-border cross-border funds transfer and payments use case. They wanted to be able to provide same-day funds availability. I didn't want to rely on correspondent banking and Swift messaging and so on. And so they have worked with a partner who implemented this blockchain connector that connects to their e-channels and core banking system, AML, CFT systems, takes a request, validates with the core banking, validates with AML, puts a message on the blockchain, event is generated to one of the other connected branches or subsidiaries. And then, they can basically retrieve the details of the transaction through their own blockchain connector, make it available immediately into the mobile application, web application portal, etc., for the user. So anybody who needs to do same-day funds transfer, basically cross-country, can use this obviously in this bank.
So Mark, why didn't they not like Swift? I mean, why were they trying to replace Swift? I mean, what was their
So there were basically two main things. One is delays. They didn't want to use correspondent banking networks, which used to take 2 or 3 days, and they wouldn't have any visibility as to where the funds were at the time, during the time. They wanted immediate transfers. And they also did not want to pay Swift costs associated with that, right? They wanted to avoid some of the costs. So I know Swift has done more work to provide more, not real-time, but close to real-time payment capabilities since then. But nevertheless, that was their perspective.
So in terms of the cost, I mean, how much does the blockchain, your platform, reduce the cost compared to Swift for banks? I mean, if it's how much does it reduce it?
They have seen some ROI. This was something that was deployed a few years ago. So I would have to go back and look at the numbers. They've shared some numbers. I can probably send those afterwards. But there was an ROI. Primarily, primarily they were looking at creating same-day funds availability, and that kind of benefit for their customers. That was the primary thing. But there were some savings as well.
Okay, thank you.
The other use case here's another bank that created an eKYC as a service. They had an onboarding process that used to take about 10 days, a lot of documentation and so on. And they wanted to replace that with something that was more immediate. So they have created a mobile app that enables people who want to open accounts to scan the card, identity cards, get on a call with the call centers. There is a few other scans being done live, facial scans, etc. A small form being filled out, all of the documentation uploaded and provided. 10 minutes later, you have your account open, right? So they use the blockchain to basically store the KYC profile, share it with some of the other affiliates, self-sovereign mode. So that means the users get prompted when they are asked if you are okay to share this particular profile, and that's stored on a blockchain as record as well. Another use case here is this company called ISNet. They operate as a service bureau for a number of banks. And in particular, they provide AML systems that need constant care and feeding in terms of the information on sanctions and watch lists and all of that stuff. And that used to be a manual process requiring downtime. And there were constant, small percentage of issues where, complex information would not get properly updated. They couldn't schedule the downtime, etc. So they created a blockchain-based real-time capability to collect information from various sources that issue those sanctions and compile the data like Dow Jones Risk Management and others, and feeds that through the blockchain's applications and connects to the blockchain to get an update in real time. And all of that is tracked as well as the fact that it's been updated. So from a regulatory perspective, I have more details on the slides following as well. But just to give you a sense of compliance capabilities that this is supporting. Yeah.
Mark, we have two people, Ron and Barry. Barry, do you have a question, Barry, or you just want to say hi?
No, I'm just typing something to Mark. He can address it when he sees it.
Sure.
You can go ahead, Barry.
Yeah.
What I'm typing to you, Mark, was I was just wondering if you if as Oracle looked at all into things like Algorand's code chain technology, which allows for private instances that combine with the public blockchain. So you get the best of sort of both worlds and allows you to take advantage of the public blockchain, which is secure and cheap and scalable and extremely fast and has never had any downtime while all being carbon negative and not losing out on the inflexibility of private chains from that perspective. And so I'm happy to share
Yeah.
information with you after the call that might
Sure.
be beneficial to you.
Yeah, and absolutely. Happy to take a look at that in more detail. I can tell you that we did have a conversation with Algorand about working together in some ways. There is nothing specific that we have to announce at this point, but there's been conversations.
Okay, great.
All right. So a little bit.
You guys can connect offline. I mean, Barry and
Yeah, absolutely.
Barry's our Algorand guru.
Okay, great. Yeah, just a little bit of to share with you a few examples, and I'll go more into more financials later. But outside of financial world, we are supporting one of the largest maritime shipping consortiums called Global Shipping Business Network on our blockchain. 1 in 3 containers worldwide get shipped through the participants, either terminal ports and terminal operators or the carrier companies that you see here. They support a number of applications tracking very large amounts of data, as you imagine, for all of the documentation related to shipments, as well as actual logistics data, such as containers, supporting cargo release applications. For example, this allows them to automate the cargo release process that used to take a couple of days, now down to a couple hours, because all documentation for customs is available in real time. And they also work with a number of banks in the trade finance space, making the shipment information available to trade finance networks. We've worked with U.S. Health and Human Services Department. Oracle contributed a lot of technology during the pandemic times. One of them was our blockchain capability to collect data from what's called at anywhere diagnostic testing. So at home testing, testing devices that they used, at work, sports venues, schools, colleges, etc. They didn't have a good way to ensure that they can reliably collect that data with non-repudiation, immutability, and so on. So we've started with Abbott and their Binance Now test, and then added a bunch of others, and have supported HHS and CDC in that effort. Another example here is in electric vehicle battery manufacturing process, collecting data on critical minerals from the point of mining through a number of players in shipping, refining, creating the different intermediate products that ultimately end up becoming cathodes in the battery units, going into batteries that, part of Volvo cars and later Mercedes-Benz, Polestar, and others. So there is a very active network collecting a lot of this data and ensuring that, conflict minerals are not used, starting with cobalt, mica, and a bunch of other things have been added, and they're expanding this through our partner company, a UK-based company called Circular. What was interesting is this was all about provenance traceability, but later on, Mercedes-Benz was really interested in understanding CO2 emissions throughout that process. And so that was added on top of it because they wanted to make sure that they can find those areas where there is a lot of CO2 being emitted in the production process and, address it. So Oracle's focus areas would have been in these 4 pillars, right? To help enterprises with enterprise-grade capabilities, as you would imagine, to make sure that the open source blockchain that we start with is imbued with a lot of the additional features, if you will, that are required for enterprise IT, making it easy and quick to get value from the blockchain. People were experimenting for a number of years. At some point, the boards really said, look, show me what you're going to do with this and how it's going to benefit us. We really want to see something that generates value. And so people said, well, we're going to look for capabilities that allow us to do this very quickly, exploring use cases that may or may not pan out. We don't want to spend 6 months or a year. We want to spend, a few weeks, maybe a month. And we try to gear everything that we can do from deployment, development, management, etc., integration, to make it easy and quick and painless. Integration in particular was a focus area for us, including REST APIs, making it easy to integrate with applications out there, adapters for ERP systems and others, banking systems, etc. And then also making our applications, which is another big part of Oracle, making those applications to make sure that they are enabled for blockchain as well. I see a quick question here about shipping use case, part of Maersk. No, this is a competing one. This is called Global Shipping Business Network. It competes with Maersk and TradeLens. So we started with Hyperledger Ledger Fabric. You're probably all familiar with it, and we found that it really suits well our customer needs because of a lot of core built-in capabilities and the community best practices that go along with the community and modular, extensible kind of architecture, allowing us to add a lot of value. We are actually seeing Fabric being used in a large number, dominating, based on this study at least, from University of Cambridge Business School, production deployments, right? So they talked to some 160 entities in 49 countries and found 67 production live networks, 48% of which were based on Hyperledger Fabric, and then you see, Corda and others and so on. I've seen some numbers since then that suggest that, there's a lot more projects being done using Corda. In recent years, that's probably the case, but I don't know if you cut them in terms of what's in production, what's actually live, that probably, changes quite a bit. So we've added a lot of things. Again, not going to go into a lot of technology here, but we try to make it easy as a managed service. All of the HADR, zero downtime, patching, management tooling, security auditability, which needed to be added for things like SOX 404 compliance use cases and others where you have to be able to actually audit the data that's on chain and audit configurations and audit the validity of the crypto hashing of the blocks and all of that. Identity management integration, development tooling, improves the underlying data management as well for performance reasons and so on. So we went pretty deep, right? Rather than going broad, like some vendors did and said, like, we'll support a number of different blockchains out there. We decided to invest our engineering know-how and resources and make this really, very advanced, state-of-the-art blockchain network capabilities that our enterprise customers can use safely and securely. As I said, it's in our cloud, very easy to start on the developer services. You go click blockchain platform, fill in a click, visit to provision it, takes 5 minutes, click submit, 10-15 minutes later, you have this entire environment with all of the underlying resources, all of the Fabric nodes built in, and then all of the add-on components that Oracle provides. All of that's available out of the box. We also have, as I said, on-premise version, Enterprise Edition, and it can operate in a hybrid environment, can deploy it in VMware, variety of other virtualization environments, all the same features, capabilities. But for those folks that operate either in countries or in industries where there is data residency requirements, there is sovereignty requirements that prevent them from using Oracle Cloud.
Mark,
Yes.
We have a question from Cindy. Cindy, go ahead. Cindy?
So I didn't mean to interrupt. I type in my questions. My first question is, about the payment use case with Swift's GPI. That is a new standard to address, cost transparency and speed. How does your offering, to the banks?
Yeah,
compare to
so
that?
I'm somewhat familiar with GPI. We're actually a big, Oracle is a big, part of Swift, as a vendor. They use a lot of our older technology, not our blockchain. And my understanding is that GPI is a much improved capability for payments, but there is still time delays involved. It's not real time. Last I heard it was like 30 minutes for fast payments or something like that. I'm not sure how banks view it from a cost perspective, but at least the few that we talked with that were interested in using our technology found it to be, much more real time and more effective than GPI. And second question, how we compare to IBM, who's also using Fabric. We are similar in many respects. We do use Fabric. We have done a lot more work to make it more comprehensive and easier to deploy. With IBM, you have to go and run Kubernetes clusters, and it takes a bit of effort and skills to actually deploy it properly in a kind of enterprise grade, high availability environment and so on. Ours is much simpler, easier. It has a lot more integration capabilities as well. So we have people who are migrating in just because it's easier to use, easier to build on, automated code generation, including chain code generation, which is a unique capability, and a number of other more detailed kind of technical differences where we believe we have some advantages.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So, a lot of management capabilities I mentioned, we have this nice console for web interactions, as well as REST APIs, managing the infrastructure, editing policies, smart contract lifecycle management, monitoring, troubleshooting, everything you need to make it easy, right? From entire lifecycle, easy to deploy, easy to integrate with a variety of systems, easy to secure with built-in identity management, on-chain access control, etc., easy to run and manage without a PhD in blockchain, including for the sort of high availability environments, and easy to scale out. When you start with a couple nodes and then you need to go and expand beyond that into network, you can do it easily across multiple Oracle cloud regions around the world. I think we're in 14 different cloud regions right now. And of course, you can use non-Oracle nodes, as I mentioned, on-premise nodes and so on. A lot of unique capabilities. Again, you'll get the deck. I'm not going to go through a lot of this in detail, but things that our enterprise customers really have asked for, like data visualizations, analytics integration, confidentiality, privacy support, bidirectional integration capabilities, all of those things. And what we also do is we surround the blockchain with a number of other capabilities to create what one customer called the wing-to-wing architecture, right? When you deploy it for complex use cases, you need integration capabilities with various systems that are going to send transactions and feed the data. You're going to want to take the data and have off-chain capability. We have a built-in integration with Oracle database for streaming the data into relational schema, and then applying analytics and AI ML on top of that, security integration. So you can basically start with this architecture and very quickly and easily create complex applications in a low-code kind of environment with integrations and orchestrations that are drag and drop, smart contracts generated by blockchain app builder, dashboards and reports generated in analytics, and all integrated into some potential, front ends, web or mobile, security integration, all of those things. So we try to provide very compelling toolkits, if you will, that allow customers to be successful in creating complex use cases in a matter of a few weeks or months. Interoperability came up earlier.
Yeah, so Mark, before we go to that, I don't know if you're covering it later. Do you have any toolkits for NFTs too?
Yes, we do. Absolutely.
Okay.
And I'll talk about NFTs as we get a little further in.
Okay.
On interoperability, right? You've probably all seen this adage, blockchain is a team sport. We believe that there is multiple facets to interoperability. The first one being where you want to have a single ledger running across multiple vendors or multiple clouds, and we support that and have production deployments like WSBA and others doing just that. There is also the facet where you want third-party smart contract frameworks on your blockchain ledger. We do that as well with DAML support, as well as Solidity support. And then the third facet is cross-ledger integrations that was raised by Ron earlier. There's a couple options there. We partner with Quant, which supports this over-ledger middleware solution, which provides cross-ledger middleware integration capability. And we're also beginning to work with Hyperledger Cactus, which is a project in Hyperledger organization community that was pioneered by Fujitsu and Accenture. Recently reached 1.0 GA kind of version, and we're beginning to work on integrating it, and it provides interoperability across multiple ledgers. And this is a little bit of how we work with Solidity in particular, right? You deploy essentially a Solidity VM, Borrow VM on top of our platform. You have FAP3 client available. You can use Remix IDE to actually import smart contracts, deploy them, invoke. You can also invoke through our REST API. And if you want to use Web3 provider, we have one called FAP3 as well that provides kind of JSON RPC interfaces that are analogous to Ethereum interfaces. So you could do that as well in a permission context. So in addition to all of this infrastructure work we've been doing over the years, we realized that customers need help in creating actual applications to take advantage of the blockchain infrastructure. And we approach it in two ways. One is through partnerships with a number of ecosystem partners, ISVs and system integrators, creating growing portfolio of solutions for verticals. Plus this low-code development tooling that we call Blockchain App Builder that can automatically help to generate smart contracts for custom solutions from declarative templates, basically, and then facilitates deployment testing. And we have created inside templatized support for fungible and non-fungible tokens so that you can quickly and easily pick a template, customize it, and then automatically generate the smart contracts and the chain codes for fungible tokens and non-fungible tokens, right? And that's is the most recent capabilities over the last year. And I'll talk about that in more details. But this is blockchain app builder, runs in Visual Studio Code extension as well as command line, supports a full, development life cycle. But specifically, this automatic generation of chain code is a unique capability that it provides. So you can start with a specification file in YAML or JSON. You can automatically generate the chain code and scaffold the project. You can add custom methods on top, local deployment and testing, and then deploy and package it into the OBP network, either on-premise or the cloud versions. And we're beginning to see a lot of customers taking advantage of this without requiring a lot of specialized blockchain developers, right? So they can take it as a regular analysts, enterprise developers, and so on, quickly sketch out a template for the smart contract, and then go ahead and create one, deploy it in a matter of minutes. This facilitates a lot of capabilities. And we said initially that this was going to be, generic, right? You could create whatever template you wanted. But we also see value in creating and providing pre-built specialized templates in certain areas like tokenization. There has been a lot of interest in doing tokenization-based applications. Fabric does not have a built-in token. So our goal was to try to make the standardized application chain code available that can implement tokenization on top of Fabric. And we started with token taxonomy framework as a model. This came out from Enterprise Ethereum Alliance as a meta model, kind of defining different token types and such. And we have done some optimization work as well. So now we support essentially fungible tokens. You could create the definitions and the classes, and the non-fungible tokens as well, coming out actually this month. You see here what a token specification looks like with different behaviors based on TTFs, the anatomy being fungible in this case. And then from here, we use the TTF model to generate appropriate behaviors and the entire lifecycle management. We create a basic SDK. You can build additional chain codes on top, calling those SDK APIs. And we also provide wrapper functions that are exposed through REST APIs. So you can immediately start using it without writing any additional code to set up and initialize a token system, and then do basic process of minting, transferring, etc. And all of that with built-in security, role-based security as well, because that's obviously very critical for enterprise use cases. You can also do token exchange, and we've actually demonstrated that a while back using hash time lock contract, HTLC, to do an atomic swap between tokens on Oracle blockchain and ERC20 tokens. HTLC protocol is a well-known mechanism for exchanging tokens across different ledgers, different systems, using escrow capabilities. And we have implemented and demonstrated this a while back. And this can be done with either fungible or non-fungible tokens. Just a little bit on what analysts are saying. There are some comments here from IDC about our extensive kind of development and roadmap work. Independent Thought had done a profile, in-depth profile in Oracle blockchain with some good takeaways. And most recently in Juniper Research, focus on blockchain and financial services, they picked Oracle on top of the leaderboard here, highlighting the innovations that we've been doing and making it really appealing to enterprises and financial services in particular. So let me switch gears. Yes.
And are there any use cases for NFTs that you can tell us in terms of where you've actually implemented them and there's an ROI on them? That would be
absolutely. Let me talk a little bit about use cases in general in financial services, and then I'll have some NFT ones at the end, if that's okay.
Okay. Yeah. In interest of time, I think we could move to the use cases part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do that right now. So, as I mentioned, we have over 250 customers using this across a number of different areas. We operate across many industries, but I'll focus on financial services. There is a lot that are in production here. There are some examples across different industries. Again, wanted to highlight the fact that we are really trying to focus on customers that are production oriented, that have real world use cases they want to deploy. So in financial services, we see kind of 4 different segments we've been working in: payments and securities. And I'll talk a little bit about cross-border payments, asset liabilities, tokenization, brokerage window transfers, those kind of things. Trade finance and business services, was this letter of guarantee, letter of credits, other kind of things in that area. Consumer banking, loyalty, rewards, and other things. And then some other services, including intercompany accounting, insurance, this compliance work, etc. So let's start with payments. Yeah.
So Mark, I think payments, we kind of covered it, but it would be interesting to see if you're going to go back a slide, there's, yeah. So I think in this, it would be interesting to hear about, the loyalty balance reconciliation that you've done, or the mutual funds to brokerage window transfer.
Okay.
That and in terms of more from a tokenization perspective, I think payments people are aware. The group is quite aware about payments.
Okay.
So we can cover more about the insurance and other sectors that we have.
Yeah, we'll skip the payment one here. This was about asset tokenization in security services for Standard Chartered in Singapore. They have created basically a mechanism to tokenize stocks, bonds, gold holdings, and use our blockchain as a digital bookkeeping, basically, frame ledger. And then also created a trading gateway to interact with other digital exchanges out there, and brings the data back through APIs into our blockchain. This basically enables fractional ownership and 24/7 availability, so they can automate all of the processing, trading transactions, all of the balance access, redemption of digital assets back and forth, and so on. This was a deployment. They built this trading gateway, so this was kind of their own piece, but we provided the blockchain platform and front-end tokenization here for taking the, basically securities assets, representing them, and then being able to provide back and forth exchange, right? Providing transparency, eliminating some of the intermediaries, purely because they weren't operating in a fiat environment. The regulatory regime was much easier, so they could avoid reliance on some of the intermediaries and do a lot more work in-house, and that provided better services, lower cost, and so on to their clients. Brokerage Windows, this was done with TIAA, which is a big, pension retirement fund firm for teachers, right, in teaching industry. They have ability to allow people to sell funds and move money into self-funded brokerage accounts, self-directed brokerage account. But this is provided by a third party, right? That's an asset manager. And this process is usually overnight, involving file-based transfer. Sometimes the account information doesn't match and it gets kicked back. And so they have what they call not in good order standing transfers that takes a lot of time to resolve. And people are unhappy because they cannot then, go and use the funds they were planning to buy stock tomorrow or something, or transfer money in the other direction. So we have facilitated a process using blockchain where this exchange can happen and the account information can get reconciled and validated in real time without waiting for overnight transfers. They can quickly check if there is any mismatch. And we have essentially ability to detect in real time, and then they can fix whatever data mismatch is occurring, right? So it's almost like a QA process on those transfers ahead of kind of, the nightly, funding round. I see a question here. Do we have a scaled down version of enterprise for small and medium? Yes, we do. We have 2 SKUs in a cloud environment, one called standard, one called enterprise. If you want to come to oracle.com/blockchain, you can drill down on the cloud offering and you can see both SKUs available there, and happy to send you more details on that.
Yeah, that would be interesting for the members if you send us information on that, if anybody wants to.
Absolutely, we can use it. We talked about loyalty and retail, right? So this is the one I talked about earlier, the KYC. Let's skip that one. This is loyalty network. Hana Bank in Korea created this global loyalty network. Maybe some of you heard of it. It's very big in Asia. I think they have expanded it to over 2,000 countries at this point, 14 million members, if I'm not mistaken. The idea was that using loyalty points from your cards, you can do transactions abroad without dealing with foreign exchange, right? So you essentially have this, cross-country reward system-based currencies that you can use, and you can apply, you can withdraw actual fiat currency, in ATMs. You could apply it to different shopping experiences. There is merchant vouchers, many other things, right? And all through the GLN mobile app. The idea was to help members spend the points better and faster so they don't hang around on a balance sheet, and create more experiences for them. Trade finance, documentary processes, right, that take a lot of time and effort. Putting them on the blockchain makes a lot of sense. You can streamline, you can have real-time data. This was India Oil, which does a lot of development projects, obviously, with vendors around the world in the oil business. They have bank guarantees. Vendors have to get a bank guarantee for delivery, right? Otherwise, India Oil will get, paid, compensated if the project fails. They used to have a lot of manual effort involved in updating the documentation for bank guarantees. Now, with a blockchain digital bank guarantee, it's a much easier process. They are able to see the data in real time. Bank guarantees are always accurate because they represent the latest data related to the projects. They can execute them, they can trigger them online, and so on. Another trade exchange related, export import. This is in India, a company called Cargo Exchange, working with Ministry of Commerce, created the secure logistics document exchange to facilitate exchange of documentation to support trade finance operations. This was piloted with some of the leading banks in India, like ICICI, Axis, SBI, HDFC, and it provides a mechanism to exchange trading documentation without having to do physical delivery of documents and things of that sort, being expanded now. This is in Europe, a non-performing loans marketplace. There is, in some countries like Italy, a lot of non-performing loans banks want to offload. They create a package, a portfolio with all the supporting documentation, upload it on this system, on this marketplace, with our blockchain platform providing the tracking and hash anchoring of the records so they're immutable. And then there is basically bidding operations and auctions they conduct using standard kind of a blockchain mechanism for bids and offers reconciliation. Some reconciliation work we talked about. This one I talked about earlier with this nets. The interesting thing that financial reconciliation actually started outside of financial services at General Electric. They operate a lot of different business units, G aviation, G healthcare, G finance, G corporate. They do a lot of intercompany work, right? They buy and sell from each other, multiple ERP systems. And the problems they had was there were something like 4 million intercompany invoices, billions of dollars, and they were flowing through archaic systems, and they needed to be able to connect those multiple ERP systems, reconcile and do the matching and validation. So we basically created a blockchain infrastructure for that. Each business unit operated its own node. They had a completely distributed, decentralized approach to this. All of the matching validation was done on-chain through smart contracts, netting settlements. They could verify intercompany agreements, which were codified in terms of the timeframes, accounting codes. All of that was automated. And then they were able to send payment requests. Yes.
Mark, Kate has a question. Kate, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for this great presentation. Okay. My question is about the when they use the conversion. So, what type of conversion mechanism they're using from crypto to fiat currency?
So I'm not sure I can understand the question.
It really goes to the previous slide you were explaining.
Oh, okay. Yep. The previous one we're talking about the GLN.
Yes.
Or the GLN one. Okay. Yeah. Let me go back. Okay, so in GLN, basically, as a credit card user, you get rewards points.
Right.
Right. And using those rewards points, they provide, I mean, they do foreign exchange under the covers, of course. But what they, help consumers with is ability to see the rewards points, from their home country, banks that participates in this, without having to deal with foreign exchange, right? So they get vouchers, they get, those kind of benefits. If they do withdraw, if you are a Korean customer, you go to Japan, obviously, if you're going to withdraw, money from ATM, you're going to do yen, right, local currency, and so they're going to show you what the conversion rate is, how many points, etc.
Okay.
But if you're shopping online, there's online malls and things of that sort where you don't have to worry about foreign exchange.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. So on this reconciliation use case, as I said, started with G because we have so many different businesses and they wanted to streamline and automate this process. But we have then started seeing this being applied in banks and other financial institutions. So this is global top 10 bank that has a lot of entities and they have multiple ledgers. They use PeopleSoft, Oracle Fusion ERP, other ledgers. And they have a very complex processes with hundreds of people at the end of each closing period pouring through the spreadsheets to try to reconcile those transactions that don't match. So we have created an infrastructure for them on the blockchain where we ingest the reference data and then transaction data as well, cross-entity transactions. Then they're able to check it to see, for example, if they are already covered in their Fusion ERP system. If yes, then they basically rely on invoice generation in the Fusion system. If not, the blockchain smart contract generates the actual invoice and checks, validates all of the accounting codes. There's automatic validation done. There is an approval list attached to it based on reference data on the blockchain, goes through an internal approval cycle as well, updating through smart contracts, status information. And if it's all approved, then it goes into the payment flow where it can be either released to the Fusion system for payment with a payment request, or they can send accounting data and essentially send it directly to accounts payable team to release the payment. So the tracing is done on blockchain and reconciliation is done end to end. So you can see all of the entities involved in a particular transaction and all of the approvals associated with that.
So Mark, in the interest of time, because we have only like a few minutes, because Ron wants to make some announcements towards the end. If you could just talk about
NFT?
in terms of how NFT and metaverse, like if you
Yeah.
can cover in
Sure.
a few minutes.
Let me get there. I'll skip some of this. Okay, we'll send it back. There's a lot of partner stuff out there. So we have seen a lot of interest in NFTs in things outside of the typical collectibles, right? Things like retailers with omnichannel experiences, fan engagement, monetization in entertainment and sports, electronic bill of lading. There is one company that's developing an EBL based on NFTs because they're negotiable documents. Using NFTs for uniquely identified products that need to be traced across distribution chain, certifications and qualifications that are important in various supply chains, inventory financing as well, where basically inventory is represented as NFTs, as well as in things like ESG investments. And this is a whole separate probably topic altogether. So we have started by working with partners, providing capabilities of the ledger, and then the partner provides a marketplace. One of those partners is Zuor. They support a couple of different marketplaces. So the first one was a event streaming and community platform, kind of like online concerts platform, where people can mint NFTs from those. We're working now with a news media, global news media outfit that decided to NFT their iconic photography over the years, and that's using our ledger under the covers. And then there is also this another company creating personalized video content. They take standard commercial video, entertainment events, sports events, and allow people to basically attach or insert themselves with that and create a customized video experience. So these guys are already in production. They have a couple of NFT sites. One is for Yanni, which is this international music star, singer, photographer, etc. And also the Chief, which is this iconic movie about the family that used to own Pittsburgh Steelers. They have essentially ability to mint using ERC 721 contracts on our blockchain platform. We have released support in our blockchain app builder for these capabilities. So you have a non-fungible token template, and then we generate the chain code methods that are available through the APIs, essentially to be able to do standard ERC processes, right? Minting, transfer, etc. And then on top of that, you can build more compelling use cases. So we think there is a lot of value in using permission blockchain for NFTs compared to the open marketplaces, right? You hear about, issues with copycat listings and fraud, like, at OpenSea, gamers clogging up Polygon networks, climate impact, right? Processing one Ethereum transaction can be as expensive as 1 month of electricity use for normal residents. So a lot of those things you can do without all of those issues, if you use permission blockchain, you can reduce the risk. You can make easy fiat payment integration. So crypto wallet burden, which could be significant for regular user. You can avoid that. Compliance with privacy, SLA commitments and high availability, integration with internal systems. So as people go broader with NFTs, I think we're going to see more and more. And we're seeing our customers coming and saying, I want to build a white label permission marketplace, or I want to embed NFT in some existing application, right? How can they do that? So we created essentially a reference architecture for this kind of capability, starting with our blockchain platform, content management, some tooling for building marketplace UX, experiences, analytics integration, and we can work with customers to quickly enable them with this kind of architecture and then help them implement the actual custom marketplace capability or use partner solutions that provide pre-built, customizable marketplaces that can be deployed as white label marketplace offerings, right? And you see a number of them here. We have a lot of plans in this area, a lot more work around tokenization support, different types of NFTs, fractional NFTs, hierarchical NFTs, etc. Wallet support, exchange methods. I mentioned we've already done exchange with Ethereum using HCLC, but there is things we can do to simplify it and accelerate it, as well as exchanges with payments and so on. And then a lot of decentralization efforts that go beyond tokenization in cross-chain interoperability. I mentioned Cactus, bridging. We are working on off-chain data support, decentralized identity. We actually have a project working with the university right now on applying decentralized identity capabilities in a permission blockchain, decentralized governance, off-chain Oracle framework, template-based abstraction layers to continue to build up the capabilities on the platform to make the solution and application development easier. So we have a lot of things that we can offer. I invite you to follow up. We have this model of how we can engage in this process with a lot of folks at Oracle. And I'll kind of stop here. I know there is a few things that Ron needs to cover. So
yes, we probably have to bring you in again for the NFT piece. That sounds very interesting. And in terms of if you can help us think through how to actually create an NFT on your platform, we could have probably a demo around that because our users may be interested in
absolutely happy
that.
to do a demo. Yeah, we can schedule that.
That is something people will be interested. And then metaverse also probably the next session we can cover. We couldn't cover it in this session.
Yeah.
Ron, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sonia. Mark, thanks very much for the presentation. It was really fascinating. There's so much we could dive into. And as we mentioned on our prep call, Mark, we look forward to re-engaging with Oracle. We were there in the early days with them, so it'll be a great conversation to have you part of. So Sonia, I just want to wrap up with a couple of items. We missed you last month. We did hold the meeting, and I wanted to take away some proposed work streams and items that we're moving forward with off of that prior meeting. So there are 2 or 3 other things. Members who are part of the Enterprise and Technology Working Group, we're looking at a comparison matrix for forensic tools leveraging blockchain. Please let me know if you're interested. We'll plug you into that work stream. And Mark, you might have heard earlier, I mentioned cross-chain bridges. We're actually working together with our cybersecurity working group on a cross-chain bridge kind of technical analysis and cyber risk profiling capability or paper. So we're working on doing that as well. Again, anyone interested in being part of that, do let us know. 2 events, Sonia, you alluded to this, and I'll send it to members as well. Mark, again, would love to have you part of it. We are planning, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, a metaverse event. It's probably looking like Q3, Sonia. Mark, I think there's opportunity to plug in Oracle here, and certainly a lot of the members of our Enterprise and Tech Working Group as well. And we are working, we do have large bank members. We're looking at a banking seminar probably sometime in the summer that really focuses on kind of the evolution of banking capabilities, leveraging DLT and beyond. Stay tuned for that. That might actually be in person. It'll probably be in person. But for the members here who are interested in participating in structuring that, pardon me, please reach out to me and let me know. And then finally, I think some of you on this call are joining us. The WSBA is going to be in Washington, D.C., May 16th through 18th. We're meeting with regulators. We're meeting with legislators. And somewhere along the line, Ron gets to buy dinner and drinks. I'm not quite sure how I arranged that. But for those of you who can join us and who are plugged into that project, please stay tuned as well. Mark, I know Oracle has quite a series of conversations with regulators and legislators around the world. So we'd love to loop you into that at some point in the future as well. But Sonia, we're just about at time. Any last comments or questions? Happy to give that to anyone in the group. And again, thank you, Mark. Thank you, Sonia.
Just wanted to say thank you, everybody. And Mark, there's so much information to digest, but we really need to bring you back in, like I said earlier, from an NFT perspective and metaverse perspective in terms of use cases, and actually, if you could, show us how it's being implemented, Oracle. And at some point, if you become a member, then we would like to also bring you in to do a hackathon with us, our members. So that's kind of the roadmap I look at. We see a long-term relationship with Oracle going forward.
Is it possible to get a copy of the presentation?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I'll send it. I'll provide a link, and Sonia and Ron can then forward it.
And Mark, we'll also, as we've noted, we're recording this session. We'll share that with members. We do that through our newsletter and Slack channels as well. So more opportunity to dive more deeply into some of this.
Yeah, and Mark, we shared the recording with you before we share it with members in case you need some edits done.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of the week. Happy weekend holiday to everyone who's celebrating. Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, everybody.
everybody.
Bye.